Hello everyone, and welcome to this video tutorial for our mystery knit along rule of thirds. I'm going to show you a few things in this video. The first is how to join a new yarn. The second is how to do a knit one front and back, although hopefully if you're ready to join your new color you already know how to do that. And then finally I'm going to show you how to work the fans from clue 1. To do the fans you will want to have some markers, and you may want to use a crochet hook, especially if you are a European style knitter, a thrower, who tensions your yarn in your right hand. So to get started, we're going to join our new color B. So the way that I do it, and it doesn't matter if you are a picker or a thrower, go ahead and insert your needle into the first stitch of the round where you're going to add your new color. And then make a loop with that new color and give yourself a long enough tail to weave the ends in. And I just hook it on my needle, just like that. Pull it through, and now I've joined my new yarn. The edges will feel a little bit loose for the first row or two, and then you can weave your ends in right away if that makes you feel better. Next, to do a knit one front and back, you will knit a stitch normally, but then do not remove the stitch from the left hand needle. Instead, take your right needle tip and knit that stitch again through the back loop. So we've knit 2 stitches where there was 1 before. It's a simple increase that will be used continuously through this pattern. Okay, now for our fan rows. The pattern tells us after knitting 1 and knitting front and back to knit 4 stitches and then work a fan. Okay, so the fans are worked over 6 stitches. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These 6 stitches is where our fan will be worked over. We're also going to be working down 5 rows, or you can also count garter ridges, and that would be 3 garter ridges. So I'm going to count over 3 stitches from the end of my needle. 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to count down 3 garter ridges. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to insert my right needle tip into the hole just below that 3rd garter ridge to the back of the fabric. Then I'm going to take my working yarn and wrap it just like a normal knit stitch and pull the yarn through the front of the fabric. If any of you are crocheters, this may feel kind of familiar. It's how a lot of shell stitches are worked. So now we're going to knit 1. Oh, before you knit, you can see that I let the yarn be loose and I've pulled it fairly tall. This is about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch long. And you want it to be tall. You don't want the fabric to be smushed too much or pinched. So allow that loop to be somewhat tall. Then you'll knit 1. So we've worked 1 of our 6 stitches. Next, you're going to insert your needle tip back into that same hole, draw up a 2nd loop, make it the same height as the 1st loop, and then knit 1. We're going to do this 6 times in the same space. However, if you are a thrower or a European style knitter, it may be easier for you to use a crochet hook because it's an awful lot to manage having everything in that right hand. So to do this, you'll take your crochet hook, insert it to the back of your work, grab your working yarn, and then examine the loop when you pull it up. And you're going to want the right leg of the loop to go on the front of the needle and the left leg to go behind. Make it the same length as the rest of your stitches, and then knit a stitch. If you forget where you're at, just count these long loops that you've pulled up. We've done 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know I need to do 2 more. So I'll put my crochet hook through the same hole, pull up the working yarn, making sure that when I put it on my needle, the right leg is in front, and then I'll knit a stitch. So that's 5. And you can see I'm working fairly loosely. You don't want to pull these fans too tightly. Put the right leg in the front. Okay, and now I'm going to knit that 6th stitch. Now put a marker on your needle, and then follow the directions for the rest of the row. We're going to have one more fan on the other side of the center point. So I'm going to work that and then come back and show you how to do the back side of the fans. Okay, I've worked this row 15, and you can see I have 2 fans that have been worked on the right side of the fabric, and now I'll show you how to work the wrong side. So we'll flip our row over, and you're going to knit to the marker that's just before all of your fan stitches. You can remove the marker. You're not going to need that until you work the next set of fans. And you can see that the stitches that were knit have a purl bump, and the loops that were pulled up from the fabric do not. They're kind of pulling from the front of the row, if you were to look at the front side. So this is the knit stitch, and then this is the loop that was pulled up, and then a knit stitch and the stitch that was pulled up. And sometimes they cross over each other. So you need to make sure that they're all laid out flat and that you have them alternating, because we're going to knit these together. So our first knit stitch and actually it would have been our last knit stitch and our last pull up stitch get knit together. And then we look for the purl bump if you need help. So there's the purl bump, that's the knit stitch. And then this one pulling from the front is going to be our next knit 2 together. There's my knit, there's my pull from the front. So that's 3. And so you're going to do this 6 times. And this decreases your fans from 12 stitches back down to 6 stitches. Okay, so I've worked all 6 of those decreases, and I'm going to give my fabric a little tug. It's okay if you have a larger hole at the base of your fan. That doesn't matter. Then you're just going to keep knitting down the row until you get to the next fan marker, and you'll work that exactly the same way. In future rows, when you place your fans, they're going to alternate. So this fan will be spaced between the 2 fans above it. And they look really pretty from the front.